Obviously, as a cricketer, I think the biggest honour is captaining your country, especially in Test cricket. I think Brendan's job, as he says, make you feel bulletproof. I think as a youngster, it's pretty easy to get too dragged into sort of irrelevant stuff that you can't control. But while you've got an England central contract, you don't actually get paid by your county. You just go and play while England pay your salary.
Ollie, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the Business of Sport.
Thanks for having me. No, looking forward to chatting.
Look, I think it's the perfect time to have this conversation. I was really excited to be able to chat to you right now. You've just had the most incredible experience captaining England in the Test series against Sri Lanka. Before we go anywhere else, can you just give us a little bit of an insight into what that was like for you?
Obviously, as a cricketer, I think the biggest honour is captaining your country, especially in Test cricket. So I think, firstly, it was a massive honour. But you make your debut and you think this is pretty surreal. And then obviously became vice captain just over a year and a half ago now. And that was obviously, I had in mind that the time might come at some point where unfortunately Stokes gets an injury, and the nature of him and the way he plays, obviously being an all-rounder and bowling so many overs, that was a chance that was going to happen. So I kind of had my head around it, and then obviously got the call. And yeah, it was a big honour. I think putting the jacket on, going out and doing the toss for the first time, we're at Old Trafford, and then and those kind of things. And then so it was something that I wanted to take in. But then I also realised that the stuff that comes with being captain as well. So it was kind of a sort of fast forward learning over the space of those four weeks. But no, I loved doing the job, and it was a massive honour. And whatever happens now, if there's a chance that I'll do it again, then I'll look forward to that. But it's a cool thing to have done.
Do you go into this kind of mindset where it actually then changes your game at all? Did you find that it had to shift how you did your job on the pitch?
Yeah, I think that was probably the first big challenge for me, was obviously batting at number 3. You want to get that side of things right, and that's just not as important, but almost as important as the decisions you make. So I think it was just probably getting used to that over the 3 weeks. So I was just making sure that I put enough time into my own game, but then when it was batting time, it was batting time, and then when we were in the pitch and in the outfield and in the change room, then I was being as good a captain as I can be.
I think this is the pinnacle. I want to get into it properly later, but before actually looking at that side of it, can we talk about the foundations of cricket and what it's like as a young player coming through that environment?
Yeah, I think everyone's kind of got a different journey. Mine happened pretty quickly. I kind of left school, made my Surrey debut, and then I think within a year, pretty much, I made my England debut, and I was like, wow, this is crazy. Like I think I'd played 13 or 14 first-class games, and suddenly I was batting 4 for England against India at Lords, and I was like, and if I'm being honest, I probably wasn't quite ready for that from a playing point of view. I felt like I was at the time, but looking back, I feel like I wasn't quite ready. So it was, for me, the journey was fairly smooth early on, but then suddenly you get dropped, and then you're back in your county side, and then you've got to try and get back into the side. So a lot of people have different paths. Obviously, mine was a fairly smooth one getting in.
Was it always cricket for you? There was never another path. That was what you wanted to do. That was the focus.
I played every sport growing up. I was pretty keen on every sport possible. So I played football. In the football season, I wanted to become a footballer. In the rugby season, I wanted to be playing rugby. And then I tried play a bit of golf as well, and tennis. So, and then I think it was probably around maybe 16, I got a bit stronger and I could actually hit the ball off the square. So I kind of had the technique and the foundations, but then got slightly better sort of as the 16, 17, 18 years went on.
And then when do you actually need to make those kind of commitments as a player? Did you have to basically say, I'm in, I'm committing?
Yeah, like I said, 16, 17, I think I remember chatting to some coaches now, like you've got a good chance of going on to do some good things. And I remember thinking, right, this is something that I'd absolutely love to do. Obviously, being a professional sportsman was a dream, and then fell in love more with cricket and the other sports. And the sacrifices probably were just the schoolwork. I just remember the amount of time. So we'd train on a Monday night from 6 till 10 in Guildford with the academy, and then on a Thursday night, 6 till 10 with the academy, and then I'd miss school on a Wednesday to go up to the Oval and train. So I think that was, as a lot of sportsmen realise, that's probably the main sacrifice for me was just sort of getting a fair bit behind on my schoolwork. So at that point, I was like, right, I'm going to give this as good a crack as I can.
When you're kind of coming through as a player, and it is a sport that isn't football, where you're getting the £100,000 a week, do you have to think about that as the kind of, I guess, the sensible thing to do, or other options, just in case it doesn't work?
Yeah, I think that's obviously, like I said, the way my career path's gone. I've been obviously fortunate enough to represent England, I guess, I made my debut at 20, so I guess six years ago now. So for me, if I hadn't done that, it probably would have been something that I've done on the side. You see it with a lot of players who in the winter might go do work experience and try and sort of build some foundations. But I guess with the nature of how my career has gone over the last sort of 6 years, and that the main things for me, I kind of realised I need to put all my time possible into just my game. But then a lot of county cricketers do, because obviously you get 6 months, and then if you don't travel in the winter, then you've got another 6 months at home where you're just training. So that's probably a good opportunity to go then.
What about the style of play? And I guess growing up, Maybe if you're growing up now, the difference is massive, because you've got franchise cricket and short form cricket, should we say, becoming so prominent within the game. But you're a player that, I think it's fair to say would sit much more on the kind of more traditional side, the test match player as well. Did the prevalence and I guess increasing rise of a shorter form, more aggressive game, did that ever kind of change how you played?
Even since I've been playing the game has changed. Obviously, the amount of T20 franchise tournaments that are going on around the world now is crazy. So, understandably, a lot of people kind of come in and go, right, I want to specialise in this format, because you can essentially do a lot less work and earn as good a money, or sometimes more money. So, but for me, I was always pretty clear. Like I made my debut for Surrey in T20 cricket, but then managed to break into the 4-day team. And I always looked up to guys like Joe Root and guys abroad like Kane Williamson, Virat Kohli. And that those guys are amazing at all formats of cricket. And Test cricket, for me, I've always seen that as the pinnacle of cricket. And that's not to say I don't want to go out and play some franchise stuff. I'm off to Australia after Test series this winter. So there's definitely a space for both of the kind of styles of play. And I guess the best players in the world are who can transfer their skills over the formats. And over the next few years, that's something that I definitely want to keep trying to push forward in my own game.
You're obviously a part of one of the most successful county teams pretty much ever. How does that all fit in with the obligations that you have to your county when there are so many tournaments going on around the world, and obviously the international as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges in English cricket at the minute, is trying to sort of juggle the amount of cricket that you're playing. Obviously, so I'm contracted with England, and I signed a 2-year contract last year. So I'm not technically contracted with Surrey, but I love playing for Surrey, and it's a club that have done a massive amount for me, and I love going back and playing for them. So whenever I can and whenever the opportunity's right, then I love doing that. But at the same time, there's times where you kind of have to almost be a little bit selfish. And for me, while I'm playing for England, if I'm being brutally honest, the priority for me is going out and trying to give myself the best chance to perform for England. So that means having just 2 weeks off in between series before winter, where I think we're about to spend sort of 5 months on the road. Contract
side then. So you don't actually have a contract with Surrey in the same way that you...
I'm technically contracted with Surrey, and I've signed, I think it's just three more years maybe, or 2 years. But while you've got an England central contract, you don't actually get paid by your county. You basically just go and play while England pay your salary, because I guess that the way that cricket runs is probably the best way to do it. And it's a good way of making sure that. But then I
guess it's the counties then don't take the burden of you, or at least the ECB can centralise that and take the financial responsibility away from the counties if you're not going to play loads of games for them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so they're not. I think I played 8 games out of 4. I played 8 games out of 14 in the championship stuff. So just over half. So then they're not paying my contract, and then me missing games. So I guess essentially, that's the main reason why.
How do the kind of central contracts work then? Because there's been I remember, I can't remember, probably a year or so ago, there was a lot of reporting on numbers and length of contracts and different things included in it, dependent on what forms you play. But can you explain what a central contract actually means for you as a player?
Yeah, I guess so. They've obviously changed some of the lengths of them. So I signed a 2-year, and last year was the first year they've done multi-year contracts, because I guess if they see guys playing over the 2 years, they want to kind of take that, give the guys confidence and go, right, that you're our man for the next 2 years. You've got a great opportunity to make the spot your own. So that's obviously the reason behind that, the red ball and the white ball side of things. And essentially you're scored points, and obviously I've not played in the white ball stuff, so I've got the red ball side of things, and then others on the other side, a few guys who play white ball cricket but not red ball cricket. So it's been changing over even the years that I've been contracted, I guess over the last maybe 4 or 5 years maybe. It is still changing every year because it's such a hard thing to get exactly right, I guess, with so I guess it's to do with, I guess, players chatting to the management and then chatting to the Team England guys as well. So it's constantly kind of evolving and trying to find the best way for the clubs, for the players, and for England cricket as well.
Who negotiates it for you? Do you have a team?
Not really, no. I think the England central contracts are, I guess, sorted out by the top dogs, and you kind of.
And you just get given them.
Yeah, and you get given, I guess, what they feel like you deserve, which I think it's a good way to do it if they and how much they value you.
Are there options for you to have white ball as well, or do you, for England, really want to focus on Test and then you can get your white ball fix elsewhere in
I'd love to. I mean, I made a squad last year in West Indies. This time last year, I got called into that squad to go away, but didn't play, and obviously missed out on the Australia squad for the end of this summer. Playing for England it means a lot more to me than anything else. So obviously I'd love to have that opportunity, but at the same time I realise that over the last few years I've not had the opportunities as much with red ball cricket. I've had a few shoulder surgeries as well, so I've missed a fair bit of white ball cricket. So I'll just keep trying to put in as many performances as I can. Like we said, even going to the Big Bash, that's an opportunity to take my game to another level in that format of the game, and try and hopefully break into that side whenever the time's right. But if not, I kind of see it as I like to be quite a glass half full guy with these things. So I kind of saw, right, that I've missed out on this Australia one-day squad. This is my opportunity just to kind of freshen up, mentally recharge before Pakistan. So, but would have loved to be in it. But I'll keep trying to knock that door down.
Let's go to, you mentioned you first got into that England setup after, I think it was 15 games, if I saw right before, which, is... It's incredible that you play that amount of cricket and then you get picked up in probably the biggest environment that you could ever wish to play in. And when that first happens to you, how does that actually come about? Who's having the discussions with you? Or is there a process to work with you to enable you and give you the tools, I guess, to succeed when you're that fresh and raw?
Yeah, I think mine was slightly different, and I think the way the team was at the time, there were opportunities in that batting lineup that were there to be taken, and I guess they were just keen to have a punt on me. So I guess I came in at number 4 in the England side, having batted 6 for my 15 games for Surrey, and I was only 20 years old. At the time, I was coming off a pretty hot season for Surrey, scored my runs, was playing some nice cricket. I think I made 28 in my first game, and then had a couple of low ones after that, and then got dropped for the balance of the side. But looking back on it, like you said, because I was so fresh into it, I didn't know. I'd watched a lot of Test cricket on the TV. I didn't really know too much about it. But I think the thing now is, I guess we've seen guys like Harry Brook, for example. He spent probably about a year around the side in the squad as a spare batter before he actually got his chance, and that was probably a great time for him to spend time in the environment, know what a Test match is like, and just experience the environment, the changing room environment, get to know the guys a little bit more. So there are different ways of doing it, and I guess if the time's right, that's probably a good way of doing it as well. I actually remember they actually called me in for just to spend a day in and around the series, I think 3 weeks before, in the series before against Pakistan, and I stayed in the team hotel the night before and kind of hopped on the bus with the guys in the morning. And that was actually a great. I don't know if they knew I had a good chance of making my debut in the next series at the same place. But that was a good way of doing it, because then I just got to sort of experience that morning of a test match, that atmosphere in the morning, and then kind of understand what it's about. I enjoyed that and not having that experience. But I think, I was just raw then. I guess I had some talent, but I didn't know my game. And I think that's what you need in test cricket. Don't want to say I didn't realise how hard it was, but I didn't realise how tough it is. So I guess the guys like Joe Root and who have done it for as long as he's done it, the longevity and the amount of hard work that's put in, and specifically for Test cricket, is probably the biggest eye opener I had over that period of time, and then the time that I had after I got dropped, which was exactly probably what I needed at the time. Then came back and then did much better and became a better player.
How do you deal with getting dropped? What's the key to ensuring that isn't like a terminal outcome for you as a batsman?
I think as a youngster, it's pretty easy to get too dragged into sort of irrelevant stuff that you can't control. I was disappointed to get dropped, but at the time I was fine with it. I kind of half knew that I wasn't quite ready, and I was like, right, well, it's my opportunity to come back. I think I came back maybe in the winter after that, and managed to tighten up my game in places. So I tried to see that as a big positive, and being dropped a couple times, I guess, at different little stages in my career. One time it was kind of you're in, you're out, you're in, you're out. Like I played one game, then missed the next. And that's probably the hardest thing, because batting is, you have as many probably more bad days than good days as a batter. So if you do get a bit of bad luck in one game, or you play one average shot, get one good ball, then you feel like you haven't been able to show what you can do. And I think that's kind of what we've done as a test team for the last bit of while. We've kind of tried to pick our best top 7 batters, and this is us, and over a period of time, which kind of makes that mental side of things slightly easier. And then if I do get dropped, then I probably deserve it and haven't scored my runs. So it's always disappointing, but the thing about cricket at the minute is you've normally got a game somewhere the next week. So your best way is kind of drawing a line under it and trying not to get too caught up in all the noise and extra stuff that takes the energy out of you.
Something it's been reported about recently, quite a lot within this cycle of the England team, but it does seem to be that commitment to the players. And, you talk about there just having the confidence, knowing that you have the support of management and it's not necessarily dependent on one specific result. Is that true? Is that what you're being told, to just go out and play your game and not worry so much about the outcome if it doesn't happen as you want it to? Yeah,
absolutely. And I think that's probably the main thing with cricket, and where I'm improving probably from a mental point of view as a player, rather than having 2 low scores and looking over your shoulder and thinking I might be out next game. It's kind of more like we said, you in Test cricket, and you see it with the best sides in the world. I think you want to pick your players who you think are your best 6 batters and stick with them for a decent amount. Obviously, international sport, there's always pressure for places. If they think that someone's better than me, then I'm sure he would get the nod as well. But while you've got the shirt, then I think Brendan's job's probably to, as he says, make you feel 6 foot tall and bulletproof. And that's his biggest skill as a manager of people. Yes, he makes you feel exactly that. And I think, like we said, it's an averages game. You can have 2 low ones and go win a game with 100 the week after. I think that's what he's brilliant at as a player, and he's kind of taken into his coaching as well, and kind of given us some help in learning how to deal with that. And that's probably something I struggled with for my first probably 24, 25 tests. Was I always kind of was looking over my shoulder. I'd have 2 low scores and think, I'm going to play the next game. Do I need to go and make a big score to keep my spot, rather than just immersing myself in the game now? And I think over a series, the results will hopefully look after themselves.
I mean, all jokes aside, Bazball's the thing that gets thrown around. I know how much that's disliked, reportedly disliked by him, you guys in the team. But, it comes from the perspective of just a completely different way of playing the game. But I'm just really interested in, how do you talk about it internally, not referencing it as Bazball, but this style of test match cricket, which is much more on the front foot, much more aggressive?
Firstly, it's more enjoyable to play in that way, and it's more enjoyable to watch as well. And I know we get a lot of stick when it doesn't quite go to plan, and people say, "I'll go back to the old ways." And I was like, "Well, if you remember the old days, I think we won 2 games in 17 matches in the last, in sort of that last little stint before Brendan took over." And it's not something that's really drilled into us. I think it's kind of the natural style of the players that we've got in there. Obviously, we've got Zach and Duckett up top. They're pretty quick scorers. I score fairly quickly. Ruti kind of just does his thing, and he's obviously, I think, the best ever. And then Harry Brooks, Stokes, Jamie Smith. From a batting point of view, it's like we kind of made a real emphasis at the start to be positive and to try and sort of almost take that pressure off the performance, and try and fill ourselves with confidence and show ourselves what we can do. And I think that's slightly changed now, because I think, like we spoke about, we've got a batting unit that's a lot more settled than it has been since I've played in the England side, I think over the last year and a half or so. And I think it's not, he doesn't go out and say, "Go on, take him down, give it a smack." And I think there's points in the game where you can really drive the game forward by being positive. But I think it's just kind of go and play your natural way, which for all of us is scoring fairly quickly and sometimes giving it a smack, but then absorbing pressure when we have to as well. It's not always spoken about when we do that side of things as well. It's kind of just fingers are pointed when it doesn't go to plan if you play too much of an aggressive shot. But it's not something that you're going to get criticised about in the changing room, but you can have discussions and go, was that your best option? Was this? But I think, like I said, it's just allowing people to go out and play how they think is the best, gives them the best chance, and then of playing. And if that's putting their bowlers under some extra pressure, then that's perfect.
I was going to say, is there a psychological piece that you guys talk about on what it actually does to the opponent? There's something that's almost so unpredictable about it. The obvious one being like a declaration like we had, last summer or a couple of summers ago, where, no one would have anticipated that. But you're always keeping an opponent guessing, which means there's never a rhythm that someone can settle into.
There's obviously definitely part of that. And especially when, I guess, so for example, when we played Sri Lanka, we wanted to really put their spinner under pressure, and we realised that after the first game. So then their fast bowlers have to come back and bowl more. They're going to get more tired quickly. So there's that kind of thing. And I think just the nature of the batting lineup and the openers, for example, we've got Zach, who's like 6'4" or 5, and then we've got Duckett, who's like pretty small, and one's right-handed, one's left-handed. So I think it just is something that comes naturally to us. And I think even that, for example, some bowlers find it quite hard to kind of bowl at the same spot, because Zach scores in completely different areas to Duckett and completely different style of play. And when they're going, they're two good guys that are really tough to bowl at and bowl lots of dots at. So I think, again, that's not him going out and say play that way. That's the natural makeup of the team that when it does go well, it can put some opposition under pressure and make them do things and set fields that they don't want to set. For example, they might have 2 less slips and have an extra man out on the boundary, which suddenly an edge does go through there, and you think, he's only there because of that style of play. So there is slightly more to it than just trying to give it a smack.
Smack it.
Yeah.
How important has it been, with you coming through as a young player, but to have players like Joe Root, probably Alistair Cook, you caught Anderson, Broad, I guess the experience to combine and complement the new and exciting talent that comes through. How important is it to have that balance within the team?
Yeah, I think it's ideal, really. I guess obviously Jimmy and Broady are done now, but even just chatting to them about cricket and picking their brains as much as I can and talking about, I guess the thing that's probably the most amazing about those guys is their longevity. They've done it in all conditions. They've done it for over 10, 12, 13 years. And then obviously Jimmy and Stu slightly longer than that. So kind of just picking their brains about that kind of thing and having the experience of it. And hopefully there'll come a time in 6 to 7 years, if say Joe Root's finished, then I can be the guy that's played 100 odd tests and be helpful for the youngster that's coming in and trying to find his way. And I think from a batting point of view, whenever I chat to Joe a lot just about cricket and batting in general, and he's still evolving himself. I think he's as good as he's ever been at the minute, and I think that's probably the key is the hunger for those guys, and that's something for all of us to learn from. And Test cricket, I think you can never sort of sit still. You can never think, right, I've done my work here, I need to go into the next one and just play the same. There's always different challenges and different opponents and conditions that you've got, and that's probably the thing that you can really learn off those guys.
We mentioned at the beginning, you just had the captaincy experience for the first time. How is it when suddenly you're captain and you've got Joe Root in the team as well, who's obviously captained the team on so many occasions and still playing? Is that a comfort blanket for you? Is it a massive help to be able to use that experience when you've got it available?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for someone like Joe, he's one of the best guys for that because of the kind of bloke he is. I guess he's a pretty ideal role model for any cricketer, the way he goes about his cricket, the way he sort of shows the game off, the way he is with the crowd and stuff. So, and then I think for him, he obviously captained a lot for England and went through the real highs and the lows as well. So for me, I kind of just wanted to pick his brains about that. And I think the guy here is never, although I'm a 26-year-old captain, obviously Chris Wokes, who's 35, 36, I think. And Joe, who's obviously played 150 odd games and are captaining guys who are with a lot more experience than myself, but they're guys that make it as easy as they possibly can. And just chatting to Joe about captaincy, the way he sort of manages his batting around it, the way he deals with the media side of things. And same with Stokes, obviously having him around too. It's so good having all those different experiences to sort of lean on those guys and just chat to them and away from the game, probably over a coffee or something, and just pick their brains on that, because it's not easy, and there's a lot of extra things that come with it. So to learn and how they manage those different expectations was really good.
What's the main job of a captain for you?
I think there's two sides of it. I think there's obviously a tactical stuff on the pitch, and setting the right fields, bowling your bowlers at the right time. But then at the same time, it's trying to make your bowlers and your batters, and if there's a young guy coming in, make them feel as good as possible and as comfortable as possible, and just communicate with them. For example, we had Josh Hull made his debut in that last game, and he's only played a handful of first-class games, and just trying to sort of create as good an environment as he can to go allow them just to go play their own game. And I think that's probably just as important as the tactical side of things. And just clear communication as well. Talking to guys if they've not been picked in the 11, or if they have, and just being real clear and honest and having open discussions with different guys. And I think over a period of time, obviously when you're just stepping in for I guess a series or whatever it is, then you probably learn to get better at that stuff over time. It wasn't too hard, I guess, just doing it for 4 weeks. But I think that's just as important, that kind of thing, as the tactical side.
We mentioned the difficulty of balancing, I guess, your own performance with then the responsibility of the collective leadership of a team. When you're batting, is that the moment where you have to go, this is right, this is me, my focus, my game? Yeah,
I think that was probably the biggest challenge. I think over the first 2 weeks is I still prep the same. I still hit as many balls before the game. Still try to have my routine, getting off the pitch. Obviously, get your captaincy braid off and put your pads on and right, it's batting time. But I think it probably, that in the first 2 weeks, I didn't get it quite right. Probably couldn't really put my finger on why, but it's maybe just the amount, I guess, that you take on in the field, and it can be more taxing than just standing there in the field when you're kind of making the decisions for a whole day. Then you have to go back. But I think it's something that will get a lot easier over time. I think I obviously showed in the last game, made that 100 and managed just to sort of put the two further aside. And for me, it's not just when you get your pads on, it's kind of like when you walk off the pitch. Just trying to almost save as much energy as you can when you do get off the pitch and get to put your feet up for 20 minutes or whatever before you go out and bat. And it's just trying to work out how and what would I normally do in this situation, and how can I make sure that I'm as fresh as I can to go out and bat.
You're sitting there, you've got two openers in there. You can go in on the second ball of the innings, or you can go in after 150 stand. But you've got to be ready. You've got to be in that mindset to go out and play at any time. How do you kind of approach that?
I find that as relaxed as I am, the better. So obviously in cricket changing rooms, you've often got like a balcony where you can watch live, or you can sit in the changing room and have a chat with someone while it's on the TV. So there's no formula to it. At the end of the day, I think you can do the perfect things or go out and get 100, or you can do everything wrong, get a bit of luck and go make runs as well. Or you could do the perfect things and go get a really good ball in your first few balls and that's you done. So I think for cricket, it's just about finding that consistency and you might find something that works for you and think, right, I just need to do this every time. I think the main thing is being as fresh mentally as you can be and as relaxed as you possibly can be as well. So I like to try and just sit in the changing room. I'll watch a little bit live, have a little stroll around. You want to keep the body moving a little bit. But I do find that if I'm watching too intensely, that can almost drain me a little bit before I go out and bat, especially if the opener's bat for a couple of hours or so. So I almost try and just conserve as much energy as I can, keep a rough eye on what's happening with the ball, if it's swinging, if it's nipping, what the bowlers are doing, but then try and just stay as calm as I can. And then when it's time when the wicket falls, because there's always a delay. So the TV is always about 3 seconds after, and you're like, oh, that's a raw. Could get your panic. I think it's time to get up and go out to bat now. Yeah. And then you wait and see what happens on the TV and go, right, I'm off. So I guess, and for that, it's just, staying as relaxed as you can and that's something that I'm trying to get better at. And I think I've got better at over this summer. Because watching live constantly, I think if it is for a while, can just drain your energy a bit before you go out and bat. You can't score your runs before your innings. So it's like, try and not play the innings in your head before you actually go out there. I think is probably the main thing. The hardest part of batting is your first 10, 20 balls. And it's just getting the pace of the game. And I think it's just trying to think about, right, how's the bowler trying to get me out? How do I cover his main threat? And then where am I going to look to score off him? And it's just trying to sort of block out. Obviously, there'll be a good crowd in. They'll be cheering your name when you come out. But it's just having a little routine. I kind of do a little hip stretch when I get out, look to the sky, do a little turn, and then run, play 3 shots, and just having a routine that wherever you're playing, no matter what the situation, you can kind of go through that, and then just think about, right, you might be swinging it away with a load of slips that might bring in a cut shot, or you might be trying to bowl in swingers onto my pads. So just trying to block out and trying to keep out his main method of dismissal. And just trying to keep it as simple as you can, not think about not play it out before it actually happens.
How important is form?
Form's one that is really strange in cricket and in all sports, I guess, because I guess for example, this series, the series that we've just had, I mean, I had a horrendous start with the bat. And then when I made one of my favourite Test hundreds, got 154, I think, and it was on the back of getting 6, 6, 1, 17. And then you can go and do that. And I think that's probably the fourth. Look, sometimes batting can sort of feel a lot easier than other times. And I think that's probably form. And weirdly, when you're in form, when you make a mistake, you get away with it. It might go for 4, or someone might drop one, or it might just go in a gap or something. So it's just, form's such a weird one, how it works. And I think as a batter, if you're not quite there, like, for example, this series has just been, I was like, well, I'm not scoring right. I feel really good. But sometimes it can just be as simple as having a bit of luck as well, which is quite a weird thing to say. I remember at Lords, I got out, I top-edged a ball that went straight up in the air, got caught for 1. Next game, I played the same shot. It went over the keeper's head for 6, and I was off and running. And it's just a strange game like that. But then it's also, you're 1 or 2 bad knocks away from being in bad form, and then you're 100 away from being in good form. So it's something that the best players in the world are the ones who just draw a line under each innings, whether they've got a duck or 100 the game before. It's like, right, this is a new one. Go through your sort of routine before the game, get yourself in the same headspace and try and put together another score.
I guess for your 154, it's also, at the Oval, probably one of your favourite environments. There's probably mentally, subconsciously, just something that's an additional comfort and knowledge within
Yeah.
that gives you that extra, whatever it may be, that extra 1% to maybe just deliver.
Yeah, it was a weird one because the only time I actually, speaking of form, the only time I felt out of form was actually pre-Oval Test. After getting those low scores in the games before, it rained the day before. We went indoors and I got chucked two straight balls and I just missed them and got bowled. And I was like, how am I going to go? Because the pitch did a fair bit and they were bowling well and I hadn't scored my runs. So I was like, how am I going to go and play in a test match on a green seamer when I can't even keep out a straight ball in the indoor nets or someone throwing at me? And that's the crazy thing about that whole form is like, I had the worst possible net the day before, went into the game thinking, even though I'm at the Oval, and that's what they asked me in the morning when I did press after the toss was, must be nice coming back to the Oval, home ground. Obviously, you had a lot of success there, and all I'm thinking about is, yeah, it's all good and well, but I've just missed two straight balls the day before in the net and got cleaned up by someone just throwing it 70 miles an hour at me. Then obviously you go out there and you kind of just immerse yourself in it, and it actually felt pretty good. And I was like, okay, right, I think I'm all right now. But yeah, it is nice. I do like batting at the Oval, and I think I kind of read the pitches there. I played a lot of my cricket there, so know how it reacts and know where I want to score my runs and where the bowlers misses might be, for example. So yeah, it's always nice going back to somewhere you've had a lot of success.
Looking at, I guess, formats as a whole, it's such a massive discussion in cricket, looking at how to fit everything into a calendar and understand which formats suit players best, et cetera, et cetera. But for you as players, are you worried about Test cricket, for example, the longevity of that format? Is this the kind of thing you think about as players?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's something we talk about. It's a strange one because we kind of feel like Test cricket's in as good a place as it has been in this country. But we need, obviously, and same in Australia, same in India, we need countries like, Pakistan have had a tough run recently. They're a massive cricket nation. West Indies love their cricket, but they've had a tough run recently. I think for Test cricket to stay as popular as it is, we need, I guess, as many Test nations to keep having that as a priority as we can. You don't want to just be playing against India and Australia and feeling like they're the only ones that really matter, because that's not how we feel as players at all. So I think that's probably the important bit, is trying to keep as many of these nations having Test cricket as their priority. And then there's a massive place in the game, as you've seen, for franchise cricket. But it's just finding a way to make sure there's the best way to get them going hand in hand together and almost complementing each other rather than just stealing players off each other.
Yeah. Tell us about your experience of franchise cricket in the various tournaments. I know you've played a few, and you mentioned you got the Big Bash coming up. Whether it's the same kind of approaches, mindsets, tactics, decisions on what competitions to play, etc.
I played in the IOT20 a year and a half or so ago. Well, that was a weird one because you kind of go play there's no crowds out there. It's in Dubai. You don't really have any home fans. The teams just come together for 4 weeks where you just try and win a few games, and it's trying to think that the main thing is trying to find a way for it not just to become individual, is trying to buy into the team thing because there's a bigger picture to it. So for me, that's why I'm so excited to go to the Big Bash. I'm playing for Adelaide Strikers, and that's a team that they get a good crowd who obviously from Adelaide, they're a team that's been together a good while. It means so much to the other players. So then I'll feel that pressure of, right, this is a big tournament, obviously not for me, but also for them. And I want to be able to contribute into helping make, I guess, as sport should be, make the fans proud and sort of help teammates and help them win games and that kind of thing. And I think that's probably the important thing with franchise cricket, is trying to build a team and build a fan base, and so players can buy into it rather than thinking, because there's, not saying that people do it, but you don't want it to be like just go earn your money and go play, and then you don't want to be thinking too much yourself. You want to be thinking, right, how can I really buy into the culture, buy into the people that I'm playing for, rather than just thinking, it's just another tournament, another 4 weeks on the road. And so I think that's probably the main thing for me with franchise cricket, and that's why I chose to do the Big Bash rather than one of the tournaments in South Africa, South Africa, similar to the Big Bash, to be fair. They've obviously got their home fans, or the ILT20, and it'll mean a lot more playing in front of obviously home fans who have a real desire for the team to win.
Is Big Bash an auction? Is it the same kind of process as how the others run?
It's a draft, but then you can have pre-player signings. So I signed with Adelaide just before the draft.
And how does that opportunity come about to you? Did they approach you?
Well, I kind of was speaking to the guys in South Africa and Dubai, naturally, because we got a long winter away. I was thinking, this is a long time away. That's a slightly shorter tournament. It means I'll just get back for a couple of weeks over Christmas before heading there. And then this opportunity came about with Adelaide. I think Tim Payne, obviously ex-Aussie keeper, took over as head coach, and they realised what the player, obviously they wanted to get me over, obviously can be a keeping option for them and then bat in the middle order. And so they just got in touch with my agent and said, would he be keen? And I was like, it took me probably about 2 minutes to sort of go, right, yeah, I'd love to, because in New Zealand before, so I can head straight from there and go join up with them. So yeah, something I'm really looking forward to. It's a tournament that I've watched since I was like probably 12 years old, and would wake up and watch it every morning on the TV before going to school and stuff. So yeah.
You mentioned about the importance of building fan base. When we spoke about the 100 previously on a show, that was what they were saying now is their biggest challenge. It's now creating these franchises that really have that proper following to go and build on it. But interestingly, one of the things they said, and it's so true, the establishment of these leagues is hugely dependent on the domestic talent really participating in it. So I didn't know, from your side with the 100 and the implementation of that over here, and I guess the T20 Blast previously, the England team, a lot of the players, do you feel like that additional, not responsibility, but, I guess want to participate to build the foundations in this country as well? Yeah,
absolutely. I think it's just trying to find a way of like working out how it's best to do that. I guess with the 100, for example, like I signed with Southern Brave, then I ended up at Welsh Fire, then I've gone back to the London Spirit for a season, and then so it's kind of like we spoke about, you kind of want to feel like you've got a home and you've got a fan base, and as I feel when you're playing for Surrey. So I've had a slightly different one to most of the guys because the way it's gone was like, I've not really had much of a base. I've kind of just played for three different teams and played a few games, and it's been like, but yeah, there's a responsibility for us, and that's, like you said, it's key to get you don't want the overseas just to be the main names. You want to have it available, so England players especially, and then the best guys in the county circuit too are sort of driving the game forward as well.
The new franchise cricket environment does provide an amazing opportunity for players to go and make life-changing sums of money. That's, careers are short. You don't know how long you've got. While you may never want it to influence decisions, there must be a time where you go, do you know what, actually, sometimes I've just got to do this because the opportunity to do it financially is too good to turn down.
100%. There's a time for that in your career. Obviously, as a central contractor player, you get rewarded for that, but it's kind of I think we talk about, you give up everything to be representing your country, especially. I guess you kind of forget that at the time, but you see it with players, I think, especially once guys drop out of England teams and when they get sort of into their last few years of their career, absolutely there's a time for that, and you see it in other sports as well. Obviously with Saudi and Live Golf and those kind of things, they're kind of like, right, I might have 3 more years left of playing. I want to be able to set up life with my family for I guess the foreseeable and for the future. So
yeah,
but I think that's a pretty dangerous way to think, especially when you're in your 20s as well. I think you kind of see it with guys who retire from red ball cricket quite young and think, right, I'm just going to go out and play franchise cricket and I get to play less cricket and earn more money. But really, I think the more you're playing, especially as a batter, is the better you're becoming as a player. And I think even if you're having to play second team for your county in red ball cricket, it's still better than just having a net, and you're only a couple of franchise tournaments away if you're not one of those household names from being dropped from that stuff as well. So I think there's obviously a reason why people do that late in their career as well, but I think it's important as well just to try and give yourself the best chance from a cricket point of view as well. And that might be playing some cricket for a lot less money, but that might put you in good stead for the other stuff too.
Do you see now that within dressing rooms and also within wider sports, I'm sure you've got mates who play other sports and all of that. Do you feel there's more pressure, more focus to have things outside of cricket, to spend your time on, to invest in, to participate in? Is that an increasingly prevalent thing now within dressing rooms?
I think England dressing rooms a pretty healthy one for that, to be honest. I think everyone's different and everyone with what they do, I guess, with their money. But for, I guess, the amount of cricket and for what some of the guys, I guess, have earned over the years, it's being inside the changing room with some of the boys, it's a pretty sort of, I think I see it as a pretty humble environment, and it's not that flash. No one's really like rocking up in a new car that often, or like some ridiculous bit of clothing. And I do think it's, and that's a product of the leaders in the team as well. I guess the guys like Joe Root and it's, guys have different things they do with their money, and they have different investments. Some have set up companies, obviously done books and stuff, and it made different investments into small other businesses. But it's something that we don't actually really talk about too much, which I think is a really healthy environment from that side of things as well.
What about the, you mentioned that the schedule, your time, you've mentioned a few times you like to feel settled, but, you're forever on the move. How do you work with the schedule of, that demands so much of you, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, it is a lot at the minute, and for a lot of, especially, I guess, international cricketers, it is a lot. But I think for me, it's just really important with how I manage my downtime and actually giving myself a chance when I can just to get away from cricket. I mean, I guess I left that series against Sri Lanka feeling pretty like just knackered. It was a busy three or 4 weeks, and I was just like, right, this is just my time before Pakistan where I can just spend 2 weeks just to chill out and switch the brain off from cricket, where cricket's not just absorbing my day-to-day stuff. I'm not just sat there checking the scores, reading articles, and stuff like that. So I think with this schedule now, it's just important to find a way to re-energise yourself. And then come the time when Pakistan comes around, which isn't far away at all, it's about wanting to get in the nets, wanting to train, wanting to have the energy for that first training session, and so you can really immerse yourself in that. And come the game, you're always keen, but then you're always sort of fully energized. But it's just making sure that you're as energized in that last game as you are in the first game too.
What have you got then next, kind of on the schedule? Obviously, we talked about it before, but just nice people know. You got like what's coming up? Yeah,
so we got Pakistan, leave there on the 1st of October. There for about 4 weeks, and then we get back from Pakistan, and then I think we get about 12 days at home, and then we go to New Zealand for 3 test matches there, and then I'll fly straight from New Zealand to Australia to play in this Big Bash, and then that'll finish around I think around the 20th of January, unless you make the finals, so it could be a week later, fingers crossed. It is. And then after that, most likely just try and have a month off or so, and just try and get away from cricket. Because I guess that's pretty much from now until end of January, it's pretty full on. So I think it's important to make sure you don't burn yourself out and try and stay as fresh as you can for then, I guess, the start of the new season. It can be a hard job sometimes, but I like touring and being with the lads and experiencing new conditions, new hotels, new cultures is such a fun thing to have as your job. So it's not like it's something that I don't enjoy at all. It's just important to then use those moments off to refresh so you can actually go out and perform the couple of weeks later.
Where's your favourite place to tour?
I think New Zealand,
really?
Which fortunately we go there. I've toured there twice with the test team. I think the people there are amazing. They're a good team to play against. It's competitive, but I guess the 2 teams get on. They're a good skilled team and good crowd. We get a good crowd over and beautiful grounds and good coffee and that kind of thing. So that's probably my favourite. But then even been to Pakistan, we went year and a half ago, and even just experiencing the culture in it. I mean, it's different. We're not really allowed out of the hotel there, but it's just great to like see how welcoming the people are. Same in India as well, and so they're completely different places to tour, but it's great opportunities to. There's a chance I'll never go to those places again if I weren't playing cricket. So it's trying to enjoy them as places and the people there as much as you can.
Where's the hardest place?
The hardest place, India and Australia probably. Australia's great, but I guess being in an Ashes test out there is, I guess, I've only done it once, and it is so different because of the COVID bubbles that we had, and it didn't feel quite right the way we kind of went about it. And then I think the hardest place to win is probably India. I think them in their backyards is as good as anyone, so I think that's probably the toughest place to tour.
Ashes 25-26, is that, I mean, all jokes aside, do you start looking ahead now? Is it a lot of the preparation to getting focus and getting right for such a major kind of tour like that, particularly with, I guess, the opportunity and hope that everyone will have behind a team the way it's playing? Yeah,
absolutely. I think it's an important one to sort of plan ahead to from a player's point of view, but at the same time, it's such a difficult one because you don't want to. We've got so much cricket. We play obviously 2 test series away from home. We've got India coming next summer. So it's one I think we've seen it. I guess the way you plan with our bowlers, especially, we know what you need in Australia. You know you need a bit of extra pace. So we're kind of trying to get as much into our fast bowlers and then trying to prime them, I guess, for when the time comes around. So we've got as many options as possible. But there's so many more like memories and special things you can do before then as well. And obviously the pinnacle would be going out and winning an Ashes series away from home. But as a cricketer and as a sportsman, you don't want to just have a focus that's always a year and a half away, because there's a lot of things that can change, and come the time, they'll be fully focused on that. But for now, there's some good challenges in the near future.
Amazing. Look, Ollie, I've so enjoyed this. Thank you so much for joining us and giving your time. Very excited to see what happens in Pakistan.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me. It was good fun.